Guys, the stage is yours.
What do you want us to see? What do you want?
We'll figure everything out as you wish.
Take the, yeah, please. Fala, galera. Eu sou o Alexandre Birman.
I am Alexandre Birman.
Quem está aqui para ver o Alexandre Birman?
Who is here to see Alexandre Birman? Very good, you're smart. I am Alexandre Birman. I'm going to talk about my pet at Arezzo, but that's fake news. My name is Itai. I am from South Summit.
He's expecting for me to talk in English, so I'm switching now to English because I want to give you just a little bit of explanation before we can speak with our great guest today. Alexandre Birman, which is a fantastic businessman from Brazil, he's arriving at the event, so he's going to be 20 minutes late. Arezzo guys, can I believe that he's going to be just 20 minutes late, or he usually is more late than that? More or less. Okay. So it's possible that he takes more than 20 minutes to arrive here. But we are going to cover for him. So the three of us, we are going to tell the story of Arezzo, right? You know Arezzo? It's a joke, okay? No one here knows nothing about Arezzo. Okay? So I just wanted to say to you that it's going to be a pleasure for all of us, including us here in the audience, to hear the story of Alexandre Birman. But before, you have a great opportunity to learn about open innovation and the next chapters of open innovation from two international guests that are going to tell us about their experiences, their perspectives, and that is going to be, for sure, a great experience for you. So let me start by introducing our guests. But I'm not going to do it myself. They are going to do it themselves. So directly from Israel, we have here Itai Green. Itai, please give a hint for Itai, a great guy that is here with us today.
Thank you very much. So I'm Itai from Israel, and I own Innovate Israel, which is a consulting firm that helps big corporations to stay relevant these days of rapid changes by collaborating with others, which is open innovation.
But if you collaborate, are you not losing your secrets?
Nowadays, for a traditional corporate, there is no other chance to survive rather than to collaborate. There is no way for a corporate to rely solely on internal innovation, no chance.
So we are going to explore a little bit more of that in your next participation. So, Jose Maria, who are you, Jose Maria, and where do you come from?
Yes. So thank you very much for the invitation, and hello, everyone. I am a partner at the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator. I'm also, as you can see in my back, executive director at the SAP Business School, and also a Harvard alum. Today, I bring in to all of you, there is a hidden opportunity for Latin America. That's my pitch.
And where is it hiding? It's at the other side of the stage, or where can we find it?
You will see in a second.
Oh, and where do you come from?
I'm coming from Spain. Yes.
From Spain. So our guest from Spain, a big hint for him.
Thank you very much.
So we are going to hear perspectives of open innovation from Spain and from Israel. I would like even for you to think if there's some kind of difference because of your origin, because of the market that you're part of, because of your position in Europe and your position in Middle East. If you could explore that, it would be interesting. Me, myself, I work with open innovation in Brazil. Of course, my company also comes from Spain, so we have some experience in that market. But we can even explore a little bit of the differences, the cultural differences that may have some kind of impact in the methodology. So Itai, you spoke about collaboration. So let's think about Mr. Alexandre Birman that is going to be here very soon. So he's a manufacturer of fashion, mostly shoes, but also other designs, other brands, and so on. So a big part of his competitiveness is attached, of course, to his technology, to his insight, to the positioning of the brand, and so on. So you're speaking about collaboration. How does collaboration collaborate in that sense with that? And why should we not be afraid of collaboration when a secret and having some exclusivity is so important for strategic positioning?
First of all, there is no other way these days of rapid changes rather than collaborate. If you rely only on internal innovation, you end up like Nokia. There is no other way. And you know, you need to realize, every traditional business has to realize, most of the smartest people are not working for him or for her, for that corporate. Most of the smartest people are working for academy, for other companies, for startups. If you are not familiar with this ecosystem, you miss. You end up like Nokia, like Agfa. And so there is really no other option. And you know, he can hire McKinsey to tell him what's the next thing to do. But even McKinsey doesn't really know what's next. Because with all the respect to those smart people, they rely on existing data on the web, on databases. They don't really know about a couple of entrepreneurs in the garage which do not have any web presence yet. So for a big corporate to know what should be done and who should they collaborate with in order to stay with the trend and not to be surprised, you have to run innovation in an open innovation methodology, in a smart way, in a professional way.
So in my next question, we are going to explore a little bit about that methodology. So I want to know how we are going to do it, and also how to separate. There is an expression in Brazil with joio and trigo. Someone can say that for me in English for me? How can I say joio and trigo for him? Rye and? I can get, it's not water, right? So, yeah, so how do you separate the good startups and the good collaborators and the bad collaborators? Because there's plenty of people saying, I want to collaborate with you and so on. So if you can explore that a little bit more in our next question.
Sure.
But I want to move to Jose Maria. Jose Maria, when we spoke a little bit before, you spoke about the why and the how, and you said there is a hidden opportunity. So elaborate a little bit more. What is the hidden opportunity and what people should be paying attention to here in the audience?
Let's go. For that, I have to ask a question, not to the guest speakers, but to the audience. If you are a startup, please raise your hand.
Quem é startup aqui? Startups aqui na plateia.
Startups in the room? Okay. Second question. If you're a corporation, please raise your hand. Thank you. This is what we call corporate venturing. Corporations and startups innovating together. Now, most of you, or many of you, are coming from Latin America, Chile, Argentina, Peru, Mexico, Brazil, the Caribbean, and more. And there is a huge opportunity for the next 5 to 7 years, which is when we were doing an analysis with more than 100 corporations in Latin America in 2018, we found that 24% of those corporations were innovating with the startups. Do you know what's the current number? 40%. So A, this is growing at a speed. Corporations innovating with the startups. However, if you compare right now Latin America with the US market, we have a 95%. So this is just the beginning.
It's now I'm speaking from the Brazilian market, and I myself am an innovation consultant. We practice open innovation. At some points, I have the sensation that we hit the top. So my impression is completely wrong?
Let's provide some data. Since 2016, the number of corporations that have innovated with the startups, for instance, one of the mechanisms, the corporate venture capital, has increased between 2 to 4 times in terms of volume of investment and number of transactions. However, there is a second opportunity. If you analyze the Latin American market and you try to identify what's the most common corporate venture mechanism right now, is the corporate incubator. However, when we were trying to analyze all the corporate venturing mechanisms, such as corporate acquisitions, corporate incubator, and other mechanisms, we found that there is a new mechanism, and that's the second opportunity that we have found in Germany. It's called the venture client. The venture client is, imagine that you're a corporation, you identify a challenge, and you try to find solutions, startups to tackle that challenge. And then you do a proof of concept, a pilot. Now, with data, we compare both mechanisms in terms of cost and speed. And on average, the venture client, the pilots, can improve, optimize cost and speed versus the corporate incubator. Therefore, when you start tomorrow at 9 a.m. doing corporate venturing, analyze the data to choose the right mechanism.
So you're answering Itai's question, right? So you're stealing the question from him, but I'm going to ask anyway. But with you, Jose Maria, for when we interact again, I would like to hear you on return on investment of open innovation. So yesterday, we gathered 80 corporate innovators, so 80 leaders of corporate innovation from the largest companies in Brazil. Someone here was at that encounter of the 8? Yeah, I see one there. Someone else was there? Corporate innovators reunited at Instituto Caldeira 2 days ago? Just that guy. Okay, so the other ones are hearing this for the first time. So we got everyone together and we were discussing, do we need to prove value from open innovation in the companies? Should we have a more bandwidth to create, to be creative, to see what is the result, and so on? So I would like to explore that question. Itai is smiling because he wants to speak about that also. But Itai, I asked you so that we could explore a little bit of methodology, right? So you spoke about the methodology of open innovation, and also I had a follow-up question for you that you stay thinking about, how to choose a good collaborator. So if I'm Arezzo, or if I'm Vale, or if I'm Sicredi, I see guys from Sicredi here, right? Sicredi guys, are you paying attention or are you looking at your phones? You're looking at your phones, but now you're looking at us, right? So if you're from a bank, if you're from a mining company, if you're from a big retail company, there's lots of people saying they want to collaborate with you. I have a new technology, I'm a startup, and I have something for you. So it's difficult to choose between that many options, and of course you cannot make proofs of concept with everyone. So how can you tackle that?
So it's like marriage. You need to do some backup check, and you need to build relations. I can tell you that in a vibrant and healthy ecosystem, it is relatively easy to run a backup check on entrepreneurs. And of course, when you start working in this open innovation environment, you reduce the risk by working, for example, with serial entrepreneurs. So you can start with that and start with something that is a kind of win-win and quick win. So you can really start showing value. And then along the way, you start learning how a good entrepreneur behaves. So it's a matter of experience.
And what would be a good example of a quick win in open innovation, in collaboration between a corporate and a startup?
I think that there are many areas within the corporations that are relatively kind of soft areas. For example, you can start running pilots within the HR or finance or procurement, not in the core of the company. Start with that. Look how it works. Get some learnings and then move to the core of the business. Build this experience. Once you build it, you can do amazing stuff and get great value. My recommendation to my clients is at the beginning, at the first couple of years, do not measure the success of innovation by ROI, but only by the number of pilots. The more pilots you will run annually within all the organization, across the organization would be much more ready in order to get prepared for the future, for the more complicated pilots, for the more complicated integrations.
So when you speak about collaboration, you're thinking essentially about pilots, about, that's the measurement unit for collaborations between startups and companies.
At the beginning, the way to measure is by the number of pilots. I can tell you from my experience, and this is something that each and every corporate here can do. When I meet a new corporate, I first meet decision makers. Let's say I take one VP and I meet them for 1 hour. I learn the challenges. After 1 week, I come back with a list of 50 startups that, in my view, are relevant to this challenge. This VP takes 1 hour of his or her time and rank the level of interest in each and every startup. It takes 1 hour. 2 weeks later, we run an innovation bootcamp with the VP and its people, let's say 15 people. We start 1 hour explaining what open innovation is, how to do it right, what we shouldn't do, and then 10 startups, the most relevant ones, according to the VP, are getting into the office, one after the other, 30 minutes each, 10 minutes speech, 20 minutes Q&A. At the end of the day, the decision makers decide with which out of the 10 they want to move forward to the second meeting. Do you know what is the statistics?
What is?
How many here think that out of 10 startups, the people in the corporate people are interested to move forward with one of the 10 startups, 2 out of the 10 startups, 3 out of the 10 startups, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
Let's try to...
Seven out of the 10 startups, the corporate people show an interest to have a second meeting. That's amazing, because at the end of the day, your goal is to have 1 or 2 pilots per unit, per division. And in this way, after they've been learning what innovation is, what they should do, what they shouldn't, they met 10 startups which are relevant to their challenges. They picked 7 to have a second meeting. Their chances for 1 or 2 pilots annually are above expectations. Super efficient. That's my recommendation to start with.
I would like to know the opinion of corporate innovators in the audience. I see Bruna there. So Bruna, what do you think? Bruna doesn't want to speak now. So let's speak to Jose Maria once again. Jose Maria, Itai started to answer your question. He was trying to steal the question from you. So he was speaking about ROI. So in Itai's opinion, we should not measure return on investment on innovation, open innovation initiatives in the first years of this work at a company, maybe because there is not that much history, there is not that much culture yet. You're still trying to find your path, your way to work with that in your organization. What is your opinion on that?
On the one hand, I would say there are different models. So for instance, if we check Samsung Ventures is combining both strategic KPIs and financial KPIs. Then we have other companies. I remember, for instance, Intel Ignite that is combining also both. But then you have companies such as Alibaba, or there are a few banks that are moving to the extremes, to only financial KPIs or only strategic KPIs. So my first point would be, it depends on the strategy of the company. The second point, I'm sorry to mention this to the audience, that is, I'm bringing really bad news for all of you.
I didn't get the question, sorry. What is the question?
So the point is that I'm bringing bad news for the audience, which is 70%, I repeat, 70% of these collaborations fail, based on a research that we have done and we have published at Harvard Business Review. So, stop, no, this is not the end. Because we have been doing research for the past decade with more than 500 chief innovation officers to understand what the remaining 30% is doing differently. And therefore, we are in the room. There are some also hidden teams here in the room. Here we have, for instance, the partners of the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator. We have Tecnalia with several partners here, Maika, Paco, Ruben. We have EBN. We have also the Inter-American Development Bank and a few other partners. And the goal is a project funded by the European Commission where we're going to try to support corporations bridging the Atlantic between Latin America and the Caribbean and Europe to optimize this process of doing piloting between corporations and startups.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that innovations that we are developing here in this market may have a contribution in the European market, and there's some support for us to work on that.
In both directions.
In both directions, even better. We can work with solutions from Europe here in Latin America, right? Itai was intrigued by one of your phrases, which is the rate of success of the collaborations. I'd like to comment on that. Before he comments on that, let's see the corporate innovators here in the audience. Let's see the rate of success in proofs of concept in pilot projects between corporation and startups. In your opinion, it's up until 30%, 50%, 50%. Half of them work, half of them doesn't work. The ones that doesn't work, we stay only with the knowledge acquired, but not with a further collaboration. Is that correct? Let's see, 70%. 70% work. Yeah, so Jose Maria says 70% fail. So it's a good debate. Tell us about your experience on that, Mr. Itai.
I'll tell you. Jose Maria is right.
He's right. Okay, so you're agreeing with him.
Wait. When a corporate doesn't know how to run innovation, the success rate of pilots that turns to an implementation, a successful pilot, is 30%. But when a corporate is running innovation in the right way, in a professional way, it is 70%. And that's not something I was reading about. These are my clients. That's what they do. The difference between the 30% and the 70%, you know what is the difference?
What?
The level of engagement of the C-level and the board of directors. That's the difference. If the board members, if the C-level executives are engaged truly into the process, it reaches 70%. Otherwise, 30%. So the challenge is really that. And with regard to the ROI, I must tell you something. Israelis are not smart than others.
Not smart?
No, not smart than others. We just have the experience. And the experience in the area of open innovation, we are lucky. Why we are lucky?
Why?
You know how many big international, multinational corporations are running innovation activity in Israel?
No.
Guess. Who says that 100 multinationals are running innovation in Israel? 200, 300, 400, 500? 536 multinationals are running innovation in Israel. So we are lucky to learn from their best practice. That's all. And according to their best practice, according to research that have been done by PwC, most of them do not measure the success of innovation at the first couple of years by ROI. So I recommend you to follow.
Jose Maria wants to comment on that, but before I have a follow-up question. You say that the companies that are doing it right have a high success rate. What is the rate of companies doing it right?
That's a matter of, I really don't know. In Israel, I think that maybe around 50% are doing it right, 50 not. Other places, I don't know. It really depends. But at the end of the day, there is so much to learn from others. The whole idea behind open innovation is learning from others, is collaborating with others. Then exactly with the COVID, that governments learn from each other. Same with here. There is so much to learn. Just learn and implement. It is by far more simple than people tend to think. And again, the challenge is not to find the right startup. Most of my time as consultant is not the scouting. It's to engage the decision makers. And there are great ways to do that.
That's a good insight. I want to explore a little bit more of governance in open innovation. So you're going to speak about this very soon. But since you say that the best thing that we have to do is to learn from others, let's learn from Jose Maria. Jose Maria, what do you want to speak about this insight from Itai? So from Itai's perspective, the thing about the rate of success has to do with the open innovation practice within the company. Do you have a comment on that?
I will try to, first of all, provide some data and then some insights. In terms of the data, so we analyzed more than around 300 corporations across the globe in Europe, US, Latin America, Asia, Africa, and we found that precisely 69.4% fail when regarding your question. But also, if you deep dive into the details, because the devil is in the details, I would say there are some factors that increases that failure rate. For instance, it's not the same working with a non-deep tech startup than with a deep tech startup. A deep tech startup, for those who have heard this concept for the first time, are those connected with emerging technologies such as quantum computing, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and others. And the reason behind are a few factors. Factor number one, the time horizon. A non-deep tech startup may give you returns in 7 years, while a deep tech startup you may need 15 years. Second, the risk associated with the technology. To know whether blockchain or quantum computing is going to work at your company, who knows? And third, also the complexity of those technologies. So I would say I will keep the number on the 70% on average if we have a global scope across industries. However, there may be factors such as the type of technology that you are trying to deploy that may increase the failure rate. But the question key behind is what's, again, that I mentioned at the beginning, what's the remaining 30% is doing differently? And this is what we have analyzed for the past decade.
That's interesting. Now there is another thing that Itai told that intrigued me, I want to ask for you, which is practicing up to 2 pilots per area in a company. And I assume you're speaking about simultaneously, right? Or it's, yeah, simultaneously. And
per unit, per division.
Per division. So let's say a medium-sized company with 5 divisions, you would run 10 pilots at a time. I mean, that's the way to go, in your opinion?
I can tell you about a client of mine, an insurance company in Israel, 3,000 employees, 35 pilots a year.
A year?
A year.
Okay. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit from our experience in open innovation here in Brazil. So, in our experience, the rate of failure is much higher if we split the attention of the company. So it's almost impossible to run even 1 pilot at a time in a certain division. I cannot think about making 10 at the same time, right? So before you comment, because you're smiling, I would like to hear on Jose Maria. So in your experience and from the data that you have been collecting, what is the practice of companies on practicing pilots, and do you have any insights on making a lot of them at the same time? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I may say I cannot synthesize 10 years of research in 4 minutes, but I would say I will just provide one example that I like. If you go to Germany, 2017 more or less, you will find a BMW. Who knows BMW? The automobile sector, excellent. And one of the challenges that they have is they were spending around a year to starting to work with a startup to do a pilot because they were treating the startup as a supplier. Now, Gregor Jimmy landed in the company and created a unit called BMW Garage, which is the venture client model. And what was within that black box? A 50 million budget to do proof of concepts at the speed of around 40K. Second, someone with white hair to approve processes at the speed. Third, an scouter to identify companies. And then a person, kind of human resources, to reduce the friction between the startup and the corporate culture. After that, they reduced from 1 year to a week to start the pilots with the startups that were spending around 4 months to do the pilot and then a few months to scale those technologies across the company. Right now, BMW is running more than 200 pilots through this model, through the BMW Garage. So sometimes having this buffer between the corporation and the startup may be useful to optimize cost, speed, and success rate.
That's great. So I want to hear Itai about the simultaneous pilots and also about governance. So you spoke a lot about having the right decision makers or the right levels of decision involved at the companies. At the same time, companies, many of them, and maybe Jose Maria can comment on that, they create an open innovation area, right? An open innovation area at the company. In our experience, that makes that sometimes you don't have the C-level or the real decision makers on the strategic level involved in the open innovation practice. So would like to hear about that from you. So both about the number of pilots at the same time, but also about this governance issue.
there is a very strong interest for the corporate leaders to run pilots across the company simultaneously. Because one of the values of these pilots is not only to turn the pilot into a success, it's to make as many employees within the corporate touch, feel, meet startups. When they do that, the whole DNA is getting a kind of update to our time, which is super important, super important. And when the decision makers are into it, that spirit influence mid-level management and others, and trust me, everyone can find the time to run the pilot simultaneously. It's a matter of state of mind. Once they realize how to do it and that it is important for the future of the company, and by the way, also for the future of the employee itself, they do it and they succeed. And these times of rapid changes, we cannot allow ourselves for big corporate to run one pilot a year. In this way, the corporate will be in bankrupt. So that's really, according again to my view, the interest, the strong interest to run pilots simultaneously.
Perfect. And Jose Maria, do you have any comments on this issue of governance? I mean, the right decision makers involved in open innovation, vis-a-vis the fact that companies are creating areas for open innovation and sometimes relying that to managers?
Yes. On 2021, I think that we were interviewing 200 chief innovation officers across the globe, for understanding this phenomenon of the autonomy. Because if we ask two corporations here, how much autonomy do you want? Everything. But what's autonomy? And autonomy, what we found there, it has many factors. From, are you going to have a independent budget? That budget has to do break-even. Are you going to be located in headquarters or outside? Are you going to report to the CFO, to the CEO, to the CMO? And so there are several factors on how to organize the right autonomy for the company.
Right, so I see here on the screen we have 2 minutes. So what should you like to say as a last message, something that I haven't asked for you, or if you want to fight each other on some assumptions, that would be great.
I want to conclude by concrete tips. When you meet a startup, if you want to get in touch with them, move fast. Pay them on time. Pay them in cash immediately, as soon as possible. If they want to run a pilot for free, insist paying them. Publish challenges, public challenges every quarter to the ecosystem. Get solutions as fast as you can. There are many, many things which are relatively small, but with a huge impact. And last thing, according to research that have been conducted by MIT, when you have 3 board members with a strong experience in technology and innovation, the bottom line performance is by far better than competitors. In Israel, it is mandatory by law in each and every bank to have at least 1 board member with a solid experience in technology and innovation. So diversity in age, gender, and experience, professional experience, is super important. Do you know what's the average age of S&P 500 board members?
No idea.
60. By the way, it's the same in Israel and in Brazil. You know how many board members are below the age of 55?
No idea.
2%. We have to change it. It doesn't make sense. And it is easy to make it, to make the change. It's all a matter of state of mind.
So now you have 30 seconds, Jose Maria.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a huge opportunity in Latin America to move corporate venturing, corporate startups to the next level. Any corporations and startups in the room, we are going to be around. You can reach to us, we can start together, and let's move Latin America and Caribbean to the next level. Thank you very much.
That's great. So look for Jose Maria and make business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.